We are about to embark on an immersive journey through the corridors of our minds. Stand by as we prepare for departure.
Welcome aboard, everyone, to the Productivity with Peace of Mind podcast adventure. Our journey will begin in just a moment. Inhale deeply and exhale. Our voyage takes us on a captivating tour, diving deep into the intricate layers of our thoughts and imagination. Brace yourselves for the complexities of our evolution. For a safe and enjoyable journey, stay seated, secure your helmet and protective goggles, and keep hands, feet, and legs inside while the ride is moving. Now relax and enjoy.
What if I told you that you can spend some time doing absolutely, literally nothing and not feel guilty about it? Today's guest talks to us about the importance of rest. And while it might be talked about quite often out there these days as this new movement and idea of how to take care of ourselves, she talks about this in the most authentic and real, grounded, down to earth way that I have ever heard before. So I'm really excited for you to listen in on what she has to share with us today. So without further ado, let's go to the conversation. Today we have with us Grace Boudoin. She has a business background and runs her own Good Gracious mobile coffee shop in Colorado Springs, which is about 40 minutes or so south of where I am. And her passion is in promoting sustainable rest, which I absolutely love and resonate with because that's a big part of productivity with peace of mind is how do we do the things that really mean a lot to us while still taking care of ourselves? And that rest piece is a part that we end up missing oftentimes. So, some of Grace's personal interests include yoga, reading, social media. So, well, it's so good to have you. Welcome to the show. And how's it going?
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Lindsay. Thanks for having me. I'm just excited to share about it. I love just opening the door to the conversation. And so many people have experience with this, even if they don't know that they do. And so, yeah, I think talking about it helps people really realize like ways that you can implement this into your life. And it's just so groundbreaking, I think, not just for ourselves, but for our family and our friends.
Yeah, I love what you're saying there because it's like it's easier than we think. So it's like more approachable than we think and accessible than we think. And it impacts every area of our life. So I really love that. Well, I'd love to jump in right into your own story. And you had an experience where you ran yourself into the ground and weren't necessarily providing yourself that rest that you needed, and some health issues came up. Do you want to tell us about that?
Absolutely. So I was in college, and I feel like some people already are going on alert. Let me tell you, you can experience burnout at any point in your life. And I think you can experience what it's like to move for too
Mhm.
long and to do too many things for too long at any point in your life. I feel like some people get almost like kind of gaslit into thinking like, this isn't, I should not be tired. I'm only 20 something. I should not be tired. I'm only 30 something. There's 60-year-olds telling themselves, I should not be
Yeah.
tired. I'm 60. Somebody else has it worse. And that
Yeah.
phrase never helps anyone. So I was in college, and I just remember my schedule. I was like an avid time blocker. And it wasn't necessarily because I like wanted to, it was because I had so much that had to get done. There was no chance for everything to
Yeah.
get done if I didn't time block everything. And so I literally would time block like dinner. I would time block seeing my boyfriend in college. I would time block like everything. And I was the one that was like, all right, it's 9 o'clock. I gotta go. But I pretty much time blocked from 6 a.m. I did Google Calendar, I still love Google Calendar. But I could go back to when I was in college, and literally you can see from 6 a.m. until about midnight, it was just full. And there was not a point in there that I was getting some like R&R with myself. It was
Mm.
everything was serving someone else or doing something where I needed to work because I needed money, but I
Yeah.
needed to get through school because I also needed money. And then, and
Yeah.
yeah, so I ended up just kind of like having this moment where I was like, I can't do this. And after coming out of college, I just hit such a hard wall, number one. Um, and this may not be like, I don't want to spread misinformation, but I do think that a lot of like my autoimmune disorder was sprung out of this season of my life where I would not rest and I would not like just give
Yeah.
my hormones a break. Um, and so from there, I ended up just kind of hitting this massive wall where I couldn't do anything. Like it was hard to be motivated to do anything, which was really hard as somebody who was like an overachiever and somebody who really like, I think people hear that and they think, well, you just got lazy. It's like, no, you really hit this mental wall where you're like, I
Yeah.
can't do it. People experience that in running. And the only problem I think with using running as a analogy for this is that in running, the actual like best thing to do is push forward, is to just keep going and then you break through it. That's not how this is.
Yeah.
So that was my experience with it, and it's why I'm so avid towards let's learn how to do this sustainably and let's learn how to
Yeah.
work really well and rest really well.
Yeah. Yeah. Why do you think rest is so important? Like, why is that so critical? And why should we, really pay attention to how to do that the best way for ourselves?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing that kind of woke me up was I was like, nothing, literally nothing created has a period where it is always productive. Like you look at
Yeah.
seasons, you look at nature, you look at pretty much literally everything. And then I think the easiest opposition to that is like a machine. And some people will say that. Like it's honestly something that kind of grates on my nerves when people say like, gosh, you're such a weapon, you're such a machine. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
but I'm not because I'm a human
Yeah.
being. And the
Yeah.
problem with machines is that, yeah, you can use, that's something I learned like being a business owner. I have machines that do the work for me, that create the coffee, but that has a limited amount of time. So if I use
Yeah.
that machine every single day, every single minute, I'm just pushing up the time that it's going to crash. So it's like even using the term machine, it's like, yes, and at some point, if you keep going, you will also crash. And then what are you going to be left with? Um,
Yeah.
so I think it's just so important. I think in any aspect, at some point, we're going to be tired and we're going to be exhausted, and it's going to be either physically, mentally, emotionally, even spiritually. I think that you can tell there's different warning signs for different types of exhaustion. And I think
Yeah.
listening and being really in tune with yourself, even if you're like at this point, you're thinking, how do I even do that? Like I've spent so long pushing off those signals and doing away with the signals. How do I even do that now? I just think it's the most important thing you'll ever do at any age that you are right now. It is the most important thing.
I couldn't agree more. And when you were talking earlier about that feeling of just like sitting there and not laziness, but like almost an inability to move,
Yeah.
I remember the first time I felt that way. And same thing, like overachiever, right? Called the machine, called all the things. And the first time, I think like my stress response has always been like fight or flight. I'm gonna kill it or I'm gonna run from it, right? Like I'm gonna move either way. And the first time my stress response just froze and I just like sat there and I like couldn't move. And you're right. It didn't feel lazy. It was like literally my body being like, no, we're done. Like we are done. So I really want to emphasize that you said that and that you shared that because I think if you feel that, listen, right? Don't
Absolutely.
keep pushing through. Don't beat yourself up, right? Like that's so important.
Yes, so true.
And I love the other thing that you said about being a machine, and how that's actually not fully what they're intending that to mean. Because, like you said, even if you run the machine on full blast, that's going to power down too. And it's going to slow down and sputter out, just like our bodies do if we overuse them.
Absolutely. So when somebody pointed that out to me, I was like, my mind was blown. But definitely, yeah, I'm like, machine is just not the compliment that it used to be for me.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It used to be this like pride of, or this honor of pride, right? Of just like, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm this hard worker and I'm worthy and I'm good enough because I do so many things. But you start to realize it's not as valuable as you think.
to your point on you said about like the shutting down, like you ran into this wall and it was like your stress response was just like done, like we're just
Yeah.
freeze. And I think
Yeah.
another thing too that I would love like anyone listening to know is that if you're experiencing that, I'm coming from the experience of like that was so contrary, right, to who I was,
Yeah.
that it
Right.
felt like, who am I? Like what is
Right.
wrong with me? What am
Right.
I need to push harder? I need to do something different. And just to be said that like that's not the case. There is like so
Yeah.
much shame that needs to be taken off of your shoulders that it is your body responding in the way it's giving you warning signs. The same way if you were
Yeah.
hungry, you typically don't say like, "Hey, it's fine. I don't need to eat." Like same with
Right.
other body responses. Like you don't just
Yeah.
ignore those. You
Right.
try to listen to them. And I think we've been really taught, I don't know how and I don't know why really, but
Mhm.
we've just been taught to neglect listening to our bodies. You
Yeah.
see it in like weight loss world a lot of like, it doesn't matter if you're hungry, right? Well, then you get hunger cues really, really mixed up. And then we've got,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if you're tired, keep going. Well, then you get these exhaustion cues of like, you actually need rest, really mixed up. And I think another important thing, and this might lead into a new conversation, but the idea that rest and work are at war with each other is what creates the
Mm,
problem. Because
yeah.
rest being opposite of work does not mean that it is opposing. The fact that we have made like if I rest, it's I'm not working, and if I work, I am not resting. It's like these can actually coexist a lot more than you think. And when they coexist, they feed each other, and then you kind of don't run into all of these, funny hormone like can't listen to my hormones, can't listen to my body.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you are listening to those rest cues and the work cues.
Yeah. And I think it's such a misconception, right? That rest is not productive.
Mm,
And I personally believed that for so long. Like I literally had to train myself and also start surrounding myself with people who believe this and encourage me to do it, to
hmm.
actually start like taking my evenings off, taking weekends off, right? Like resting, adding play, like playing for no reason. I remember one of the
Yeah,
first things I started doing was like drawing in coloring books was my first practice of like doing something with no purpose.
yeah.
But it was so much fun.
Definitely. And I think there's that like I think it depends on the kind of type there's type A, type B kind of
Yeah.
personalities and everything. And I'm like, one, I think people sometimes lean a little bit too hard on the type A side of being like, do
Yeah.
something that isn't productive at all. And I'm like, it can still be productive. Okay, chill. But also
Okay,
even
I
give
like that.
yourself, yeah, give yourself the ability to do something that isn't productive. I
Yeah.
honestly a lot of my hobbies like are very productivity. I don't want to say productivity, but they're achievement based. I'm reading a book,
Yeah.
and I'm finishing a book. I'm doing like making a
Yeah, true.
TikTok or something and I'm finishing a TikTok
Yeah.
and I'm posting it and I get that endorphin
Yeah.
hit every time I do that.
Mhm.
When I finish a yoga class, like that's obviously endorphin hits. Something I've
Yeah.
recently started doing, like I started picking up piano again. I get nothing out of that. I mean, I get maybe like a like I finished a song, but honestly, in a week I'm gonna forget it. So it's like I don't necessarily get that achievement based endorphin hit. And
Yeah.
it's been really restful. Like it's been really good to have that.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, I mean, I think if we look at like how rest can actually create more productivity in our day-to-day work, that we actually are doing and wanting that achievement, wanting that, productivity, whether it's, in your coffee shop or in someone's business or their career. I think, like, for at least for me, when I started really practicing rest and play, and now there's still times I do it, right? I'll burn the candle at both ends. I start going really hard and I have to catch myself and slow down again. But it's a continual learning pattern. But how can we be actually more productive in what we're doing by adding in those pieces of rest?
Absolutely. I think, I mean, it goes to the machine. It goes back to the everything in nature has seasons and it's productive and it's not productive. To also, like, just in case someone is listening and being like alert, where they're like, but you don't know me, like, but you don't know,
Yeah.
like, I have 3 kids, or you don't understand, I have this really demanding job. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, I do hear you. And even though I think it's funny that it's like, hey, anyone, literally anyone could have an excuse for why they can't rest. But
Hmm.
also everyone has the opportunity, I promise, if you can carve it out. I think the other thing is people think I have to go 0 to 100. I have to go
Mm.
from not resting at all to, yep.
I'm like,
I had to go from
me
not
raising my
resting,
hand. Yep.
right, raising our hands over here. To I am absolutely like the Zen, like super
Yeah.
calm person who rests every single weekend. It's not like that. And honestly, there are absolutely periods where you're gonna burn at both ends. Like, it just, that is life. We cannot,
Yeah.
unfortunately, schedule out life like that. If I could, I would have done it by now, I swear.
Yeah.
But I think recognizing, telling ourselves, because I do this too, and I'm sure you'll say I've done that too, where you're in this really crazy season, and you think, but it's fine, next week will be better. Oh, but it's fine. In a
Yeah. Oh,
month, I'll be on vacation. Bestie, no, you
yeah.
won't. Like, you are going to be stressed
Mhm.
out on vacation. Um,
Yeah.
and I think number one, let's not lie to ourselves and tell ourselves to
Yeah.
get to a finish line that's not there. But also let's instead create an actual finish line, of like, no, in a week, I'm gonna tell my boss this. In a week, I'm gonna go bring the kids to somebody's house and I'm gonna go on a date night, even if it means I gotta work a little bit extra right now to make that happen. It is so worth it in the long run. Um, but yeah, just even it, finding some time, giving myself grace, like, no pun intended, but giving myself grace whenever there's periods of time where I can't rest, and looking
Mhm.
forward to times, making very intentional times to do so. I actually, because number one, I do run my own business, which on one side, I'm like, I do have flexibility that I didn't have in my 9 to 5. On the other side, I feel like I work a lot. Because
Mhm.
this thing doesn't run unless it's, unless it's a well-oiled machine, and who is oiling it? Literally only me. So, I think I've had periods of time where we have blocked off the entire weekend, which also having a coffee business is like, why would you do that? Because I need rest, because I'm a human being.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've blocked off whole weekends where we're like, we're not booking any events, we're not going to do anything that weekend. And it's hard because we'll see requests come up, or I'll get emails about like, hey, are you guys available for this date? And it's like, well, technically, but I'm going to say no. Because this is going to pour into the next month. If I don't do this weekend, what will next month look like? And I think that's another kind of misconception people think of, like, oh, well, you get to do that but I've got bills to pay. Girl, me too. Okay. Um,
Mhm.
and even still, because even if that makes August overflowing because I said yes to my business and not my rest that weekend, it makes September, it feels like chains. It feels terrible. I think also, if you look at that timeline, we start making decisions about our life that I think have long-term impacts. If you look at it too, like, not trying to fear monger here. I'm just like, let's be realistic. If I
Right.
have months and months of running myself into the ground, who am I going to blame? My business. So what decisions am I going to make? Probably decisions that look like less of my business, and my business becomes less of something that fills me and more of something that drains me. Think of kids the same way, right? Like, sometimes you're around your kids too much and it's like, I want to do away with these things. and then you start having that strained relationship in there. If you spend some time away, let's, figure out how maybe we could call on that village, or maybe we can call on a friend to go watch those
Yeah.
kids, and it just gives you a greater appreciation. You see it with significant others, like literally everything. There is an example of too much is not good. And too much of something is almost always going to hurt a little bit. So, yeah, just creating those boundaries with it, I think, are so incredibly healthy.
I completely agree. And it goes back to something you said earlier, which was about being honest with yourself, right? Like you
Hmm.
said, I think you said, don't lie to yourself, right? Like truly being honest. And then there's something else you said that I thought was really interesting, where you said, even if you are technically available, you're not available, right? Or you say you're not available, which
Yeah.
as you were saying that, I was kind of thinking, even if it might like look available on your calendar, you may not like have the emotional capacity to be mentally available, right? So it's like you actually truly aren't available. You're just being
Mhm.
honest with yourself about that.
Absolutely. And that comes into the like, let's figure out where are we physically, and then let's figure out where I
Yeah.
am mentally, and then let's figure out where I'm
Yeah.
emotionally, because those three categories are going to be so potentially vastly different. Also, you could say I'm exhausted in all, and then we've got some serious work to do. But just because I'm physically available does not mean I'm emotionally available. And especially when you're doing something like I've got people, not to rant, but like having a mobile coffee business is a lot of like physical work. And so having an
Yeah.
autoimmune disorder, I have to be very realistic with like, is that possible? But on the flip side, like if you've ever done restaurant industry, like it's very, your mind is all over the place at all times.
Mhm.
And so having the mental capacity to be able to take that on and really do it well, especially as the owner of the business, if somebody is interacting with my business in some way, I want it to be positive, and I want them to get
Yeah.
a good version of me. There is something to be said about like, yes, customer service. You can put on a good smile, and you can
Mhm.
push through. I'm not an enemy of pushing through things, because I think that resilience is
Right.
incredibly important. But I
Yeah.
think having that, I guess, intuition to know, is this pushing through or is this burning out? Like, is this something that I
Mhm.
need to, yeah, is this something I need to actually get through, or am I about to just fizzle out completely? I think it's fair to say, if you don't know your body yet enough, if you've been ignoring your body for too long, I would err on the side of caution. And I would say, let's try and create these rhythms of rest first before we start jumping into, oh, it's fine, I'll just push through it, it's another one of those things. um I think I'm also I'm really bad about when I'm in the moment. If I'm experiencing something, I like downplay it. And then I'm going through it.
Mhm.
It's like, okay, emotions are high. This was obviously terrible. I hated that. That was horrible. And then I get to the other side of it. And if somebody was like, hey, could you do that again? I'd be like, well, I did it. So yeah. And it's like, that's not the best answer for this. It's like, can we remember a little bit what, like, it wasn't just that you got through it, good job, pat on the back, but also what did you have to give up in order to make that happen? And are you willing to do that again? I think that's an incredibly important question. I think it's also important to look at, hey, is life different now? Because if life is different now, are there other costs to you that are not worth it anymore? So just so many questions. I think if we just need to be, number one, honest with ourselves, and to have the courage, it really comes down to courage, I think, to say, let me be real with myself and where I'm at, and say, no, I can't do this. And I think we have such a culture that's wrapped in like, I can do it, look at me. And it's like, let's also come to the like, hey, let's be humble, and let's recognize our areas where it's like, I am fallible, I am human, I literally can't do it all. And I find so much comfort in that now. Whereas before, it felt like I was trying to attack that part of reality.
Right.
That's not real. You are human.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you kind of alluded to this earlier too, but it's kind of like the grieving of a former identity, right? Of like letting
Absolutely.
that go. And I think that's okay. I think that's okay to feel sad for a moment. I
Hmm.
mean, we don't want to like stay there, but like allow yourself to let go of and process, I guess, the emotions that come up with that transition. Because you don't, again, that's like pushing through for the sake of like ignoring it versus, okay, let me feel how this feels. Let me accept it, fully and radically, and then move forward.
Mm-hmm. I think it is it's a consistent part of life where it feels more comfortable to leave things in the dark and to not look at them.
Yep.
And it just comes back to
Yeah.
let's live a life a little bit more self-aware. I think
Yeah.
that's really, if we could boil everything down, it would come to let's be self-aware. Let's not let things live in the dark. Let's let it come out in the light and then deal with it. So that we have a more informed decision to make about how to go forward.
I love that. And I think like even as you're saying that, I'm self-reflecting on myself. And like one of my things has always been like, oh, other people, will keep the lights off for me. That's like my historical pattern and traumas, right? Like is like wanting the lights on, wanting to know what's going on. And then as you were saying that, it's like, oh, are we also turning the lights off on ourselves?
Mm,
Like that's huge because I think recognizing like, are you ignoring yourself? Are you ignoring your body? Are you ignoring those signs? Like for me, I mean, there were signs and symptoms since teenage years, like
yeah.
long time ago, right? And then this year was the first year where things just completely and royally started shutting down to the point
Mm-hmm.
I physically couldn't ignore it anymore. So I think it's just so important to really listen to that and then move through that.
Absolutely. So true. And it's like, can we help ourselves n-
Yes.
know ourselves so well that we let ourselves not get there anymore? Yeah,
Hmm.
it's so true. And I've so been there before.
Yeah. The reasoning gets so much more powerful. It's like, I've done, yoga and meditation and all the things, the retreats, all of it. Like, again, very long time ago, it started. Like, I started meditating when I was 8. I started doing yoga when I was 10. And I think maybe in the beginning it was for the right reasons, but then over the years, you get out into the world gets its hands all over you, and all
Hmm.
of a sudden you're doing it for the achievement piece that we're talking about, right? And then, now for me, it's like I have such a more intentional reason behind my practices all of a sudden. It's like I've taken that control back. I'm going to be in charge of my body. And I'm not just doing it to like look cute on Instagram or check a box. I'm doing it because I know that's what's going to feel restful and comforting. Like you said it earlier, you said something like, now it feels comforting to do
Hmm.
that versus like, oh gosh, I want to resist that part of myself that wants to slow down.
Yes. So true. And we see it too in like modern day parenting. People always talk about like, if you look at the structure, like there's the child and then there's the parent. The parent is in charge of what happens, but the child is also an important integral part of saying this is what I need. And it really is the
Yeah,
parent's job to say, let me give that to you. And it's the same thing with us. I think being able to see,
me.
number one, that you are in charge. You do have
Yeah,
control. But are you going to use that control to ignore and to sweep it away
right.
and say that's not real and
Yeah,
invalidate it? Or are you going to use your
yeah.
control to say, thank you for telling me, let me reward you by giving you that thing that you need?
100%. And you talk about something called rhythms of rest.
Hmm.
So, regardless of where we're at, what we're dealing with, what we're facing, how can we start to intentionally create our own rhythm of rest? And what does
Um,
that look like?
Absolutely my favorite thing to talk to people about is like, how can we upend your life? No, but like, how can we give you something that is helpful and beneficial? Because as much as I
Yeah.
wish, and you could go on Pinterest, you could go on TikTok, you could go anywhere and search restful activities, and it'll give you 30,000 things that you can do. But if doing that makes
Mhm.
you feel more like there's just more to do, then I can't help you. You know what I mean? I don't think that we're in a lack
Yeah.
of knowing how to rest. I think it literally is
Right.
in the call that we're going to. For
Yeah.
me, it was intentionally blocking off time, which a lot of times for me, it's going to come to time. I have to block off the time or it won't happen.
Yep.
Blocking off time saying, I am going to go and do a yoga class. I'm going to put my phone away and I'm going to enjoy my yoga class the entire way through. I'm not, especially at the end, it is so easy. Like if you've done yoga, you're sitting there in
Yeah.
Shavasana, you're having a great time. Not me when I first started, because I was like, why are we all sitting here? It's the end of the class. Like, it's time to go. Let's get ready. Like, looking at the clock, like, oh my gosh,
Next.
we have one more minute. Is she going to say something? Like, we're going to start wiggling our fingers and toes any minute now. And it was just
Yeah.
such a mind game. And then at
Yeah.
some point through practice, because literally all of this is about practice, it's not about doing something perfect.
hmm
After practice, I was like, okay, I understand it. I get it now. That's literally the whole
Yeah.
point is let's just take a
Yeah.
moment to breathe and not think about it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I think if you are physically exhausted, me telling you to wake up early in the morning and go sit with the birds and listen to them chirping is not gonna help you. Like what is real is that you need to sleep. And doing this
Yeah.
whole 5 a.m. like clean girl aesthetic morning routine will not help you, it will hurt you.
Yeah.
So if you're
Yeah.
physically exhausted, like doing less is going to help and finding more time to either like maybe sleep in a teensy bit later. If that's not possible, let's make some really intentional cuts to go to sleep a little bit earlier. Maybe we could try and use our lunch break to take a nap, something like that, but just doing some very practical, like don't push your body past its limits. If you are
Right.
emotionally exhausted, I think I have found a lot of times a lot of journaling is going to help me. Sometimes sitting down with somebody that's trusted, whether it's a friend or it's my husband, and saying, like, can I just talk? Like, I don't have anything figured out. Can I just like talk? That's helpful for me. For some people, they're going to say, that's a nightmare when I'm emotionally exhausted. Great, don't do that. But I
Yeah.
do find that some way of getting stuff on paper, getting something out physically is like very helpful for me if I'm emotionally exhausted. If I'm mentally exhausted, a lot of times this seems backwards, and this is why you need to know yourself. Doing something mentally stimulating is actually really helpful for me. So,
Mm-hmm.
doing something like piano, where I can use all the mental energy that I feel like I'm spilling at 30 different things and I can focus it on one. Maybe it's like organizing something or trying to think of something else. Reading a book is really helpful when I'm like mentally overwhelmed. But yeah, I think every number one, knowing what type of exhausted are you. And that I think is crucial into knowing how to help the next phase, which would be, okay, what's the game plan because of that?
Yeah, and how do we, like I guess fit that into our daily routines? So like what if we're super busy? What if we have so much going on that we're like, Grace, I am too busy. I can't fit that in my calendar, right? I don't have a time block for that. What would you say?
I would say you can actually create more than 24 hours in the day. And so if you just like try really hard, you can make it 30. If you try really hard, you make 36. Like obviously I'm being so sarcastic because it's not real. And I wish it was. And I think people have tried before. But in all reality, I think it number one is like we've got to draw some priority lines. We hate
Yeah.
saying no. We hate saying no. I'm a Gen Z.
Yeah.
We hate saying no. Like we want to say yes to everything. We want to be there for
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And realistically speaking, like I think also, so I'm also an avid budgeter. Why am I an avid budgeter? Because I'm an avid spender, because I love to spend money. And the reason I
Mm-hmm.
do that is because if I didn't have something keeping me in check saying, hey, actually, you've spent this much money, chill out, I would be like probably in jail. So I do that. And I say that because it applies for rest and time as well. There are so many things. Oh my gosh, I'm looking at you screen time. You know what I mean? Like, there's
Yeah.
so many things that just steal so much of our time that we're unaware of. And I think whenever we take a lot more control over that time and realize, like, it kind of goes back to the control thing too. Like, this is not happening to me. I'm allowing it. So there are
Yeah.
things I think if you think reading is going to help you, maybe bring your book with you instead of your phone. Maybe put your phone on silent and try to intentionally, instead of picking up your phone because you have a spare second, pick up your book instead. Um,
Yeah.
there's so many different ways, but I think one, take inventory of how much time you have. Um,
Mm,
place some priorities on what matters and what is important to you. What's a have to do, like, of course, there's things that we have to do. Um, I think also after you take inventory, it's important to notice, are there any changes that you would like to make or that you need to make, based on what you've seen? And then the next is, let's put some rest in there. Let's find those places. Let's time block off, like, no, I'm saying no to anything that happens for this time to this time. And instead of doing those social media doom scrolls, like, I'm going to do something. I'm also a person, if I don't plan it, it doesn't happen. So if you just want
mhm.
to, if what is more restful for you is to carve out some time and say, I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to let my mind wander and do whatever it needs to do. Amazing. If you time block it some time around whatever, a Saturday afternoon, and you're like me, you're going to probably come up with some things that you're like, I know my body's been needing this. And so I'm going to go do that. Whichever one is more restful for you is the one that you need to do. But I think those four things are really, really helpful with finding, how do we take these intentional practices and actually make them intentional practices.
Right, right. Well, and I think it's important to understand that like it doesn't have to be this huge, grandiose thing. Like we don't need 6 hours or 8 hours or, 3 days or 2 weeks, which is amazing when we can get that, if we
Mhm.
can ever get that. But it's not needed, right? Like I think the small increments, and we all have like pockets where we can find that if we look hard enough, like you're saying, like what's truly the priority, maybe there's some stuff in there you need to say no to, not because like you should, but because you said yes and you didn't mean it,
Mhm.
right? Like it's not truly something serving you, or maybe it served you at one point and now it doesn't anymore.
Absolutely. I think there's this, like, I'm not saying like let's all quit our jobs or whatever, but like there's so many things that we like accidentally sign up for, and it's either because we wanted to make other people happy or because we think
Yeah.
in some way that will make you feel more fulfilled. And then you get to a point where you're
Yeah.
like, oh, this is actually detrimental. Like, drop it. Like, I don't know, there's such a like
Yeah.
stigma, I think, about dropping things, and I'm like, and
Yeah.
for what? Like, if nobody
Right.
is there to pick it up, then it is genuinely, it is someone else's problem.
Yeah.
Also, it's like this, I don't know why, but the example of like PTO president, okay? Oh, I accidentally signed up to be the PTO president at my kid's school. What the heck do I do? Because I'm halfway through the school year and I want to pull my hair out. Well, number one, your child deserves a put together version of you. And so if that is really what is stealing you, like, let's drop it. Number one, there could
Yeah.
be somebody else that picks it up and says, gosh, I could do that. I actually was thinking about it. Very cool when that happens, not all the time. Number two, what happens is nothing happens. It's like, I have to drop out for my health. And nobody picks it up. Great. For 6 months or whatever, we don't have a PTO president. The world didn't end, but it could have for your family. Like, that's how I'm like, let's like draw some priority lines a little bit better. The school matters, the parents, the teachers, all of that matter, but also your family matters and your responsibilities to your family first, I think. So
Yes.
um, yeah, definitely those priorities. I think they just change. And I think, number one, give yourself grace when they change. And number two, give yourself the courage to say, and I'm going to do something about it. But yeah, it just recognizing that, like, yeah, we're fallible and we sign up for things and things change, and that's not your fault. You just need to do what you need to do to make it right again. And then there was something else you said too that I was like, yes. Oh yeah. So it doesn't have to just be right. It doesn't have to be 3 hours. It doesn't have to be 2 weeks. Oh my gosh, what a dream, right? If
Yeah.
it's 2 hours, it's 2 hours. If you
Yeah.
are saying to yourself, Grace, I need 6 weeks. Like, genuinely, I need 6 weeks to get myself straight again. Awesome. So we don't have that, but let's be real with what we do have. And maybe over time we'll learn how to work with what we have. And then
Yeah.
after that, after working with what we have, we'll start to create more. I think it's like you start to crave like the balance
Yeah.
between those two things. Once you have it, once you get it, you really do start to crave it, and you start to make your life around the priority of, I'm going to work hard and I'm going to rest well.
Yes. Yes. And you do better when you do. I know this year when I first started struggling with some health stuff, it was kind of like I was almost like, and I was still pushing myself to my limits at the time, of course, because that was just like, my action tendencies and my habits. But I would be in a meeting and like presenting or, sharing something important, and my whole brain would just go blank. And
Yes.
they're like, what happened to you? Like, that's not like you, right? Like, normally I'm sharp, I remember, I've got it, I'm like 10 steps ahead. And like, my brain was just like, slam the brakes, right? Because it was like, we're done. Like, we are done. And that was so hard to accept. And, I guess it goes back to like that grieving piece of like, what are you letting go of? But then as I have learned moderation and pacing and all of these things, like I'm getting some clarity back and I'm getting my brain back online, like where it should be, right? And then also still resting and slowing down when I need to, and not just pushing myself beyond limits just for the sake of like for what? Like why do we even do that?
Literally, it's so true. And I think that's another kind of introspection piece. It's like, why am I doing this? Is it because
Yeah.
I have to? Is it because I took on more than I could actually hold on to? Is this because I want to make other people look at me and say, wow, she can do it? Like, that's mine. I like would love for people to look at me and be like, wow, she can truly do it all. Like, she can't, but I'm glad
Right.
I told you. So just finding like, what is that thing? And I think
Yeah.
once you kind of, at least for me, it was like once I recognized that I literally just cared about what people thought about me, like true, at the end of the day, that's what
Yep.
I cared about. It was like, man, it's so much easier to make decisions when I have called that out already. And I know, okay, am I making this decision because it's best for me and my family, or am I making this decision because I want to please other people?
Yeah. I remember a doctor at the Mayo Clinic telling me moderation has got to become a value of yours, right? Like we all have core values. And so like making that your value, all of a sudden you kind of tack that into your list, right? And then it's like, and I think you mentioned it earlier, like making informed decisions, like being able to know, like, okay, I made this decision because moderation is my value and I want to feel at my best most days, as many days as I can, right? Like
Absolutely.
as much as that's in my control. And understanding that that's a choice and that's a shift and it's a pivot that we make to actually do more than we could have if we just keep pushing, if we just keep cramming it out and like running ourselves into ground. Like where are we going to go? We're going to go like down into the ground. We're not going to make forward movement.
Absolutely. And I think too, like seeing moderation in someone else's life that's similar to yours is like kind of groundbreaking. So, like, no, don't listen to me if you're a mom with 3 kids. I do not have 3 kids. I have 2 dogs. And sometimes I think they equal 1 kid, but they don't. And I know so like no, I'm not probably somebody that's going to give you a ton of like visual inspiration in that, but I would just really like dig for somebody in your life.
Mm,
Even on social media, if they're being like real, like obviously I don't, there's definitely a lot of like fake stuff on social media, but I like
yeah.
social media from the community aspect that I feel like I can
Yeah.
see somebody else who's living a similar life than me and not feel so alone. But
Yeah.
finding somebody that is, whether that's on social media or it's in your actual life, that is modeling moderation well, I think it's kind of a groundbreaking thing because again, it's like listening to people who maybe don't look like you, like in your exact life, or don't walk the same walk you do. It's fair. It's hard to hear that from somebody. So don't take it from me, take it from somebody else that actually is doing it. See the direct benefit that they get to reap from that. And I
Wow.
promise it will change your life.
That's huge. And it's so helpful. And I know you mentioned that you do really enjoy social media. So if is rest something you talk about there? Do you want to continue the conversation with the listeners there?
Yeah, so I try to just make it a part of like life. Like I don't want to make it this huge
Yeah.
thing that people feel almost like villainized for not partaking in because it's so
Yeah.
foreign, it feels like in our
Mhm.
society. And so
Yeah.
I honestly just want to be somebody that models it. I want to be somebody like I want somebody to say, I know Grace works really hard, but I also know that she rests really well. That is literally my
Mm.
thing. If somebody looks at my life, that's what I want them to see. Which is such a turning point from I want people to think I do good things. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, the if there was a legacy I wanted to leave, that was what it would be. So I think in my head, I just want to infuse that in everything I do. I don't want to harp too crazy on it. But I do want people to know if there's any time, like anything that you're like, I just need to work this out or I want to talk this through. Like, absolutely, my DMs are open. I love talking about stuff like this and just like, I don't know if I would call it coaching. I think it's just from one person who wants the best for you to another. How can we help get you on the right track? Sometimes too, it's like, I don't even know if you want my advice and maybe you don't, and that's 1,000% fair. Maybe you just want somebody to listen. Like just even
Mhm.
if you just want to rant about like this is why this doesn't feel possible, I will totally hear you out. Um, I just love I think creating even more conversation, even if your conversation is geared towards, I don't know how to do this. I think it's still opening
Yeah.
a door. And I think at some point you find a way through it.
Yeah. Just like the real, honest, raw conversation like we're having today.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And so where can they find you or where do you want them to interact with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am on Instagram. It's Grace Lyon Boudoin, which is kind of confusing, but I'm sure there's show notes that you could put these in too, because my name is a little bit hard to spell. So I'm on Instagram. I'm also on TikTok, which is just Grace_Boudoin. I check Instagram DMs a little bit more than I do TikTok because TikTok is insane. But yeah, I would love to continue the conversation on either of those.
Awesome. Thank you. And yes, everything will be linked in the show notes below. And I myself am not, I have still resisted TikTok. So I will definitely be connecting with you more on Instagram as well. And, I just really appreciate you taking this time to, like, really, like, this is a very real conversation, right? Like, this is not us standing up trying to be, these perfect, pretty boxes tied in a pretty bow of we figured it out. This is our journey. This is what we were learning. Or I guess this is what we've learned. And now this is what we're learning, right? Like, because it's a
Absolutely.
continual learning journey.
Yeah, you never arrive. Like I have not arrived.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
will not arrive because life
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
changing and that's literally how it is.
Yes.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
definitely don't want to be the like, and I have it figured out. It's like, no, I just try my hardest. So
Yeah.
absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. This is such a fun conversation. It's like funny to talk about rest and say it's fun when it was like my 19-year-old self would be like, are you kidding me? Those
Right.
words don't
Right.
belong
You're-
together. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
absolutely.
Thank you for braving the inside of your mind with me. The better we understand ourselves, the more deeply we understand the world. And as our awareness grows, life just gets better and better. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a review and share this with anyone else you think could benefit from listening. A quick reminder that the content shared in this podcast is for informational purposes only. I am not a licensed therapist, and the discussions here are not a substitute for professional advice. If you're dealing with a specific issue or need personalized guidance, please consult with a qualified professional. Your well being is important, and this podcast is simply a platform for sharing insights and experiences. I appreciate you spending this time with me. Until next time.